Welcome to Conversations from St. Norbert College, a program that encourages good discussion in our community on today's local and global issues. Now, your host for Conversations from St. Norbert College, author, professor, and nationally known sports economist, Dr. Kevin Quinn.
Welcome to Conversations from St. Norbert College. I'm Kevin Quinn. Our special guests are Howard Ebert and Shane Kohl, and they're here to talk about the Master of Arts in Liberal Studies program at St. Norbert College. Dr. Ebert, a 1974 graduate of St. Norbert, is Associate Professor of Religious Studies, Director of Master of Arts in Liberal Studies, and Director of Master of Theological Studies. He has been a member of the faculty at St. Norbert College since 1987. Shane Kohl works at the Trout Museum of Art in Appleton, where he is Director of Membership and Annual Giving. Shane will be the first graduate of St. Norbert College's Master of Arts in Liberal Studies program. Gentlemen, welcome to the program. And Howard, let's start with you. What is the Masters of Liberal Studies program here?
Well, that's a great question because it is a distinctive graduate program where most graduate programs have you specialize and get into a more narrow specialization. Master of Arts in Liberal Studies is a broad-based graduate program. It draws from the natural sciences, the social sciences, and also humanities and fine arts. It's interdisciplinary, theme-based, and so it's really a program that encourages creative and innovative approaches to issues of today.
And how did this get started here?
Actually, our previous dean, when he first arrived, was surprised we didn't have a graduate program in the liberal studies because one of our strengths here at the college is our liberal studies, liberal arts tradition. And so several of us, he asked several faculty to kind of investigate the possibility of starting a program. And we realized that there were over 130 programs in the country. So it's really a degree that is increasing in popularity. And as we looked at those programs, we realized it was a really nice fit for St. Norbert College.
So what are some of the courses that are offered in the program? What do students need to take in order to be considered masters of liberal arts?
Well, we have core areas. So there's courses in humanities and fine arts, in the natural sciences, and also in the social sciences. And then we have thematic areas of diversity, classical studies, ethics, and so forth. So again, the program really tries to be interdisciplinary, tries to really approach issues and questions from multiple perspectives, and in that way it encourages people to think creatively and critically.
So why would St. Norbert want to be in this business? I mean, we're an undergraduate institution mostly, and that's going pretty well.
Right.
So why do we want to add this on?
Well, I think it builds on our strengths. We have a strong tradition here of the liberal arts, outstanding faculty teaching in the liberal arts. And there was also recognition of a need in the area, that more and more people realize that a broad-based education, education really focusing on innovation and creative approaches is what's really needed today.
Well, Shane, let me ask you a little bit about your experiences with the program. But before I do that, I want to talk a little bit about the Trout Museum, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about the last 50 years of history of the museum and
Absolutely.
how they got to be where they are now.
About 50 or 60 years ago, a group of local artists in the Fox Cities area got together and created what they called at that time the Appleton Artists Guild. It was a chance to kind of showcase each other's work, learn from each other. About 20 years after that, they moved into a location where they could showcase their work to the public, just off downtown Appleton. And then about 10 years ago, they moved into a larger space right on College Avenue in Appleton, and they were known as the Appleton Arts Center. And then about 2 years ago, Dr. and Mrs. Sandra and Monroe Trout decided they wanted to donate about 180 pieces of museum-quality artwork. Mrs. Trout was actually born and raised in Appleton, so even though they live in Knoxville, Tennessee, they made this wonderful contribution, as well as an endowment to help support the collection. We renamed the facility the Trout Museum of Art, and now we are a visual arts museum, obviously in the Appleton area, who also work with some areas including the performing arts, educational outreach for students, and also just trying to be obviously a great part of the community in Appleton.
So tell us a little bit more about Dr. and Mrs. Trout. I mean, what they gave was an amazing collection. I mean, this isn't dogs playing poker kind of.
It is not
Velvet Elvis kind of
stuff.
It
is not, and I am certainly not an art expert by any means. But even I recognize many of the names of the pieces that were put forward, whether it's Chagall and some others. They were art collectors and had been for a number of years. Dr. Trout was actually a pharmaceutical president, in addition to being CEO of a number of other companies. As they traveled, they collected art. In their house, they kind of decided they was a little full, a problem I can only hope to have someday, and decided they wanted to contribute some of the pieces. So they looked at a number of places, but really because Appleton had been home for Mrs. Trout, they decided it was the right place.
That's wonderful. I mean, when you can make a donation that can make that kind of a difference, you know, Appleton has a pretty deep arts community. There, you know, College Avenue is sort of turning into Museum Row in some ways. So tell us a little bit about some of the more interesting pieces that are in the collection.
There are a lot of, it's an eclectic collection. It includes Salvador Dali and Chagall pieces, mostly two-dimensional, but there are some sculpture pieces as well. What we're hoping to do, Kevin, is use this collection to help raise the understanding and awareness of the visual arts in the Fox Cities community. A place like the Trout Museum of Art just didn't exist before. There's a lot of great local art that was showcased, but not necessarily some of the really the worldwide pieces. So that's been a huge addition to the College Avenue and to downtown. And our hope is folks from around Northeast Wisconsin will stop in and enjoy.
I was looking at some of the events that you have upcoming in the next little while, and I mean they're big names that even an economist might might recognize. So I was looking again at the website and noticed that the board of directors and the staff sort of look like a who's who in Appleton. What's your role there? What do you do there?
My role is really focused on membership and fundraising. Because we are a nonprofit, we do not receive any community funds or tax dollars. So what we do needs to be supported through us. So things like membership, capital campaigns, and annual giving campaigns. And that's really where I focus on, is trying to get folks in the Fox Cities community to really have a sense of ownership in the museum. To get them to invest not only their time and talents, but certainly a little bit of their treasure as well.
So how did you get hooked up? I mean, I don't imagine that you collected annual giving director trading cards growing up or anything like that. How did you get hooked up at this museum?
For the past 10 years, I had done fundraising at the University of Wisconsin Green Bay, which is my undergraduate alma mater, and had some great experiences there and had some great opportunities to learn and grow. And when the opportunity at the Trout Museum of Art came along, it was really an opportunity to kind of build a program from the ground up. This was the first time the Trout Museum had a true fundraising full-time position focused on philanthropy. And as I talked to the director, and he said, listen, Shane, you can come in and build the program. It's a clean slate. That's hard to pass up in my business.
I can imagine. So, but do you have some background in trying to raise money? I mean,
absolutely.
I think maybe a lot of folks don't realize that public institutions have to do a lot of fundraising, as well as private institutions like St. Norbert College.
Yes.
Howard, let's talk a little bit about your journey here. Okay. As I mentioned before, you are a St. Norbert College product yourself.
Yes, I am.
And where did you grow up, and why did you choose St. Norbert?
Well, I grew up 30 miles south of here in Brillion, Wisconsin, and actually it was determined that I would come to St. Norbert College because I was in the seminary at the time. And part of the program was we had a high school seminary, but then for college we came here to St. Norbert College. And so I was the only member of my family who went on to college. So it was a new experience for my family too.
So what do you remember most about your college days? Now remember, we're recording this, and your kids might see this.
Yeah. Sincerely, I really remember having great teachers here. And in fact, I got interested in teaching because of one or two teachers I had here had such an impact on me. And I just remember, this sounds nerdy, but I enjoyed classes, and I was a philosophy and sociology major, and I loved learning. So,
any favorite teachers in particular?
Well, one that has not only favorite teacher, but really got me interested in teaching, and ultimately has been a close friend, has been at our children's baptisms, my parents' funerals, is Bob Vandenberg. And we remain friends to this very day.
Oh, yeah, Bob retired a few years back, and
Yeah.
I still see him riding his bicycle around,
That's
so
right.
Something about the life of a philosopher apparently is good
That's
for
right.
longevity.
Yes.
What did you do after you graduated here?
I taught junior high for 2 years, and then I went back into the seminary for 2 years, and then decided that was not my calling. Taught high school for 5 years, and then went back to graduate school again for my doctorate.
And you went to St. John's and then Marquette, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
What did you study at Marquette?
It was theology, and I did my dissertation on Karl Rahner, German theologian. and really specialized in the area of theology and society.
And in fact, one of the things that you do here is that you run the Master of Theological Studies program. Can you talk a little bit about that and what's involved with that?
Yeah, really the Master's in Theological Studies was the first graduate program here at St. Norbert College. And as you mentioned earlier, St. Norbert is primarily an undergraduate program. So this was quite a decision for the faculty in the mid-1980s to think about having a graduate program. But the Diocese of Green Bay, recognizing that leadership was changing from ordained to laypersons, recognized that there needed to be graduate education for those who would be in leadership positions in the diocese. So the diocese actually came to the college and asked if we would have a graduate program in theological studies. And so we've had now over 120 graduates. Many of them are playing key leadership roles in the diocese. And we also have a satellite site in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
I hope you get to visit there in February and January. That's when they really need to check out what's going on over there.
Yeah.
that's a very good idea. So you also teach freshmen, right?
Yes.
So what's it like to try to teach a freshman about theology?
Oh.
What do they come to class with, and what do you hope to that they escape with?
Well, the range is part of the challenge, and part of the joy of it is you have people who have not opened the Bible and don't know where to find Genesis, to people who have 12 years of education in a parochial system. You have people who have never been to church and those who are devout churchgoers. So we have quite a range. I guess the biggest thing I would want them to accomplish in the course is to recognize that religious questions are important questions. They're significant. Is there a God? What kind of God is there? What difference does this all make? To me, those are the real pivotal questions that I want them to grapple with in the course, and to recognize that our ancestors have pondered these questions and have thought about it, and may have something to tell us about how to respond to these basic life questions.
It's part of the opening up of minds freshman year, which
Yes.
for some that's a very challenging kind of an experience. You're watching Conversations from St. Norbert College. Joining us are Howard Ebert and Shane Kohl, and we're discussing the Master of Arts in Liberal Studies program at St. Norbert College. And Shane, you're going to be our first graduate, so
Hopefully.
You're so close.
Well, I think if you take them out to lunch, you probably have. But what attracted you to this program to begin with? I mean, you didn't necessarily have a connection with SNC coming into this.
I didn't, and as I started to look at graduate programs, I made a list like everyone does when they start to, whether it's an undergraduate program or a graduate program, and you factor in cost and time to completion and the location of the graduate program. And but for me, the most important thing really, Kevin, was quality. I was looking for a graduate program that was going to include high quality, experts in their field faculty. I was looking for a program that really was a quality program at a quality institution. And when I learned of this, the MLS program here at St. Norbert, knowing that this was a nationally recognized undergraduate liberal arts institution, the idea that they would try to grow that into a master's program really made sense, and certainly made it an easy decision for me to choose to become part of this program.
What did you study as an undergraduate?
I was a communications major.
So that's sort of liberal artsy, but when we think about liberal arts, we think about maybe more in the world that he's at. A lot of times I think that folks in this day and age sort of denigrate the idea of liberal arts, which I think is kind of sad, actually. But so obviously you saw something in studying this and studying this particular set of things that was appealing, as opposed to a master's in communication.
Yeah. I was really drawn in by the broadness of the program. I didn't necessarily pursue this degree for a career. I think everyone in this program, every student in this program, has had to answer that question to friends and family of, well, what are you going to do with a Master's of Liberal Studies degree? For me, it was not career specific. It was the fact that I enjoyed learning. I wanted to be a lifelong learner. This was a program that would broaden my understanding, broaden my skill set. That was not just career focused, that I would come out as an accountant or an MBA. Those are great things, but they weren't the right thing for me. So that really was of great interest and drew me to this program, that I would become a better communicator, a better critical thinker, have better analytical skills. Those were things that really caught my attention.
To me, the value of it, it's studying these things. You know, I did my undergraduate in math and physics, and I didn't quite necessarily see the value in having to, read all this literature stuff and all that. Take theology classes as I did. But I've come to realize that your life is a much more interesting place if you have this idea about what the ideas are. When I took philosophy, for example, as a freshman, it dawned on me that some of these questions that I had thought about at a very shallow level, there were way smarter people than me thousands of years ago that had wrestled with the same questions, and that I could kind of get a head start on life. But even just going to a cocktail party and kind of in the work that you do, I mean, you're talking to people that obviously have an interest in the arts. To be able to converse intelligently about that, I think is a really important kind of a thing. So what kind of projects did you do? What kind of classes did you have as part of the program? What was the experience like?
It was a great experience, first of all. The classes it's an interdisciplinary program, so it was the natural sciences, the humanities, and the social sciences. So classes in literature, in physics, in art, in philosophy. To say it's a broad spectrum is a very true statement when you look at the courses that are provided in this program.
So did you do any projects that you sort of remember, that you'll remember for a long time? Or?
There was a tremendous amount of writing in this program, and that was something that drew me to the program. Even with a communications degree, I felt I was a strong writer, but I knew I could be better. And this program has made me a much better writer, only because it's forced me to kind of focus on my writing and the way in which I approached the projects. I had gotten my undergraduate in the mid-90s, so other than an email and maybe a 2-page memo, I hadn't written anything real long for a long time. So this really kind of drew me back to that. So a lot of the papers that I did and the projects that I did forced me to think, as you mentioned before, forced me to think about my perspectives. Maybe I thought I had the right idea, that my opinion was always the right idea, but in working with the faculty and my classmates, there are a lot of times I walked out the door of a class or was working on a project and recognized that, no, maybe I wasn't looking at this the right way, that there are at least other ways to look at some of these problems.
Who were some of your classmates? What were some of the things that they were involved in? What career paths?
Absolutely, and that's a great part of the program. It's a small class size. You're not in a lecture hall with 30 or 50 folks. You're in a small class, anywhere between 5 students to maybe 15 students max. And they come from all different areas. They're engineers, they're educators, they're accountants, they're fundraisers. They're older and younger, and they bring a lot of different perspectives. And there was a lot of dialogue that took place in class. Discussion. Not always agreeable discussion, but always done in an agreeable way. And that's really part of what would happen as class would break up, or during a break, as students would get together and say, I hadn't thought about that the way that you did, because you came at it maybe from an engineering perspective or from a business perspective or as an educator. That's part of, I think, what makes this program so unique, is that the folks around that table are not all the same. They're not all accountants, or they're not all business people or lawyers. There's a lot of different life experiences that happen in that classroom.
Being around lifelong learners, I think, is an interesting thing to do. There are, when undergraduates who are about to graduate come talk to me about, well, should I go for my master's program? If you are absolutely certain that's what you want to do, then yeah, go ahead and go for it. But if you're not really sure, I'm not so sure that you shouldn't get out there and do something else. Maybe spend a summer in Europe, or take a job that is kind of a flyer. I was talking to a student the other day. She's interested in doing, she wants to start her own bridal shop and be entrepreneurial. Well, now is the time to do it, But as you kind of grow up, you might have a better perspective, but you start to have more family responsibilities. You start to have, other work responsibilities, just personal stuff. How did you juggle all of that stuff going through the program? How do you do that? What advice would you give for somebody who's sort of thinking about that and is maybe concerned about that?
I think you have to come in knowing that this is essentially a part-time job that you are taking on. The classes, the work outside of the class, the group projects, the writing, the reading, is not something that you can just do in your free time. You have to set aside time and understand that you've got to stick to that schedule, which for a lot of folks who are in, as you say, mid-career positions or have families and other responsibilities is difficult to do. But I think if you talk to everyone who is part of the MLS program, they would tell you the same thing, that there had to be a lot of discipline and a lot of time management skills, that maybe after you put the kids to bed or on a Saturday morning you were maybe up early with your nose in the book already. It was something that you really had to commit yourself to.
I think you do. It's only, but it's only a couple of years, right? Or basically. And the other piece of advice I give to folks is that you have to enjoy the process. If it's just a means to an end, it's not gonna work. Well, Howard, among the other hats that you've worn here is you were the associate dean for the Humanities division here, which is the largest division at the college, and it encompasses a lot of different areas. So why don't you tell us about those areas, and why don't you tell about the areas that you were in charge of?
Well, there was quite a range because it dealt with more traditional liberal arts areas of history and philosophy and theology and English and so forth. But then there was also music and the arts, which was a whole different component, so I had to kind of get up to speed a little bit. I had my own liberal arts education enhanced by getting to know music better and art. So it was a large faculty, with about 55 full-time faculty in those areas. It was quite challenging, but it was another education. The thing I loved about the job was getting in the classroom and seeing people teach and seeing the variety of teaching styles we have here and the excellent teachers we have.
Did you find yourself learning more about communications and theater and all that?
You bet. Those are all under the humanities and fine arts. Yeah.
I think that we go to performances and it's great. Everyone's dressed in their tuxes and et cetera, and they're playing their French horns and all that stuff. But there are a lot of logistics that go by.
Yeah, I always was worried about backstage stuff.
That's right.
Lighting and everything else.
And paying for it. Okay,
right.
wow, we need a new lighting program and all that sort of thing. But I think also a lot of undergraduates are not quite sure why it is that they need to take all these humanities courses. Oh, man, I want to be an accountant. Why do I need to take philosophy? Why do I need to take a theater class? How do you answer that?
Well, and I think maybe you alluded to it earlier, that it really enhances your experience of life itself. That knowing more, appreciating more, you really come to a deeper sense of the beauty, of the challenges of living. And so the very quality of life changes. It's like someone knowing sports or music or something, their experience of events are quite different than someone who doesn't know anything. And so the humanities, fine arts, the liberal arts across the board really broaden one's appreciation and enjoyment of life. And that there's so much to learn. I think that's the strength of the Masters of Liberal Studies, is there's so much to learn, and it really adds not only to how we live, but how well we live.
Now, one of the courses that you took, speaking of sports, was a sport and society course.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that? I mean, that seems to be very divorced from anything as esoteric as liberal studies. How did you go about studying that in the context of this program?
The professor for that class, Paul Bursick, did a wonderful job of making sure that it wasn't only sport focused, that we had some great discussions and some great readings outside of the conference that talked about where sports fit in the bigger picture. And even some of the panels that were part of that program talked about that whether it's the student athlete in higher education and where that comes in. There's a great presentation done by one of the speakers talking about the PINK as part of the NFL, the breast cancer awareness, and how that was maybe a little bit bigger than even I had thought about that, where that fit and was it the right thing, and what did it mean for football, and what did it mean for sports in general. So we talked not just about, okay, sports is great. We broadened that and talked about, well, what does this mean for life, and what does this mean for individuals who are coming from low-income backgrounds and their chance to get out of that cycle and pursue a college education. And there were just a lot of great pieces that fit. So it wasn't just a look only at sports, but it really was a broad look.
Well, here, of course, in Green Bay, Wisconsin, sports is in some ways, the organizing cultural focus
is a religion.
It's a religion. It is a religion, except people take it far more seriously. But as in the arts community here, obviously that's something that you deal with. Is trying to provide something that is enriching, like the Packers are, but do a little bit more. So how do you pitch the value of that? to members of the community. So let's say, you know, I have you know, maybe the means to be able to help you.
Sure.
Why should I?
I think a strong community is made up of what I'm going to use the term as a mosaic of nonprofits. So there's certainly going to be the basic needs focus on United Way and Salvation Army, the homeless. Those are issues that are important to any community. But a strong community looks past that. It includes the visual arts and the performing arts, the history, and other different ways to capture that. Because for a strong community to draw in, not only keep its population, but draw in companies and draw in new people, it's not only the schools and parks. Those are important pieces, but it's also what else makes the community vibrant. And I think that's where the arts come in. It's where higher education comes in. The Green Bay community is blessed to have institutions like St. Norbert College, the UW Green Bay, NWTC. Not a lot of communities have that sort of differentiation in higher education opportunities. So I think that's how you talk about the importance of the arts. It's one piece of a great community.
Well, one of the things that economists have been interested in recent years is what makes a community work. And, you know, we get blamed correctly in many cases for only looking at numbers at, you know, at the bottom of the page and what the population and income and all that sort of thing. But those are really results of other things that are more important drivers of culture. And in recent years, the idea of the creative class and being able to attract a creative class in. For example, in Milwaukee, the historic Third Ward has really changed the nature of that city. It used to be an old warehousing area, et cetera, and some very bright, visionary people decided that we're going to turn this into something that's more and be able to bring in young people, college-educated young people that care about art galleries and they care about museums and that sort of thing. And it's transformed it. It's provided jobs. There, you know, all those art galleries bring in people that are of fairly high means, and they spend money on restaurants and bars, et cetera. I think the brewers and their presence in town has been a very positive thing. It brings in tourism money, and maybe more importantly, it brings in people that can explore Milwaukee. In the case of lacrosse, for example, I mean, you have the University of Lacrosse, you have Viterbo, but you also have the hospital campus that's there, and that attracts you know, a certain you know, demographic of people that contribute to the arts community and make it a better place to live. It's very easy, I think, to kind of forget about all that stuff.
Yeah, and I think one of the strengths of the Masters of Liberal Arts is that quality of life. What is a good life? Are some of the questions that get raised in classes. And what makes a community vibrant and robust, and not just reducing it to one factor of income or religion, but looking at it from multiple angles and perspectives. So I just want to add a little plug for the Masters of Liberal Studies. Because to me, it's not surprising that it's one of the fastest growing graduate programs in the country, because I think people realize we're really looking for people who look at problems and issues and questions from multiple perspectives and do it innovatively and creatively.
So let me ask you that. What does make a good life? What should we do? I'll ask you first, and then, or maybe I should ask the student first and the professor.
The professor should always. I defer to.
Boy, he is ready to graduate.
Yes, he is. Yes,
so
he is.
What does make a good life?
I think to find genuine meaning and purpose, and to have relationships that are caring and loving and compassionate. I mean, that's a very vague answer in a way, but I think one has to have a sense of what sense does my life make, what difference does my life make, a sense of meaning and purpose, and relationships that are important. And with that, as you try to find meaning and you try to really create loving relationships, you need to know more and more. Because what does it mean to be loving? What does it mean to have meaning? What are the possible ways of putting my life together? So I guess meaning and relationships and intimacy are kind of what make a good life.
The idea of lifelong learning, I think, is critical to an enjoyable, happy life. If you only know what you know and don't want to look beyond that and learn other things, this community, the Fox Cities community, have so many opportunities, lectures, and as you mentioned, theater performances and musical performances to kind of step outside that box a little bit and challenge yourself. So I think that's part of a happy life.
I hope you've enjoyed our show. Until next time, I'm Kevin Quinn. Best wishes for good conversations from St. Norbert College.